Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I used to work as a waitress at this upscale restaurant in an army town while I was putting myself through college. The place was nice, really nice, and we didn't get many kids coming through even on regular nights, but there was this special thing we did on the 14th of every month called No Children Night. Pretty self-explanatory, right? You had to show your ID at the door to prove you were over 18, no exceptions. These nights were fancier than our usual service. We had a dress code, coat check, 5-course menus with premium ingredients, the whole 9 yards. People had to make reservations at least a month in advance and pay upfront for their meals. It was always packed, and honestly, most of our regular customers absolutely loved it. It gave couples and groups of adults a chance to enjoy a nice, peaceful dinner without worrying about screaming kids at the next table over. I usually only worked summers, but I come back during holiday breaks to make some extra money. My junior year of college, I was home around Valentine's Day when my boss called me up. He told me they were really short-staffed for that night and asked if I could possibly come in to help. He even offered to throw in a free meal, anything I wanted off the menu. I didn't need much convincing. Valentine's Day fell on the 14th, which meant it was No Children Night, and I knew the tips were going to be incredible. I showed up ready to work. The place looked amazing that night. Women were walking in wearing fur coats and jewelry that probably cost more than my tuition. Some of the military officers showed up in their dress uniforms. Everything was going perfectly. The atmosphere was romantic, the customers were happy, and I was already calculating how much money I was going to make. Then everything went sideways. I was carrying a full tray of food to one of my tables when something slammed into me from the side. I completely lost my balance and went down hard. Food and plates flying everywhere. I hit the floor and just lay there for a second, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. That's when I saw them. 3 kids ranging from about 10 years old down to maybe 2 were tearing through the restaurant like they were at a playground. They were running under tables, shoving past other customers, screaming and shouting and laughing. Complete chaos. My boss rushed over to me immediately and asked if I was okay. He helped pull me to my feet while I brushed myself off. I told him I was fine, just surprised by what had happened. By this point, some of the other customers and servers were trying to catch the little troublemakers. Another server showed up with a broom and dustpan to deal with the mess I'd made. My boss managed to wrangle all 3 kids and drag them back to the front entrance. That's where I saw him. This entitled guy in an expensive suit standing there with his wife, who was dripping in jewelry. My boss demanded to know what their children were doing in the restaurant. The guy just shrugged like it was no big deal and said their sitter had cancelled at the last minute. My boss was furious and told him it was No Children Night and that he would have given them a refund if they had just told him ahead of time. He pointed out that their kids had knocked over a waitress and that it was lucky I hadn't been seriously hurt. That's when his wife stepped forward, wagging one of her bejeweled fingers in my boss's face. She told him not to dare call her children names and went on about how they paid good money to keep his restaurant running. She demanded that he seat all 5 of them and told him not to expect any tip. My boss refused outright. He told them they needed to take their children home and that their family was banned from the restaurant permanently. He also said they shouldn't expect a refund because their money would be used to pay for the food and plates their kids had destroyed. The entitled family stomped out, the wife making a big scene on her way to the door. I figured that was the end of it and went back to work. The night continued, and honestly, I kind of forgot about the whole incident. But apparently, they weren't done yet. Near the back of the restaurant, by the restrooms, there was a fire exit that led to the back parking lot. During business hours, we kept it unlocked from the inside for safety reasons, and it had this incredibly loud alarm attached to it. The door itself was just a regular door though, nothing fancy, and it could technically be opened from the outside too. About an hour later, I was greeting some new customers when this ear-splitting siren went off. Lights above the fire alarms started flashing. Everyone immediately started evacuating because we all thought there was a fire in the kitchen or something. The alarm was connected directly to the fire department, so within minutes, we had fire trucks showing up with their lights and sirens going. The firefighters checked the entire building top to bottom. No fire, no smoke, nothing. They shut off the alarm and everyone filed back inside to finish their meals. I just assumed it was a faulty alarm, or maybe someone had accidentally bumped the fire door open. I didn't think much more about it. After my shift ended, I was sitting in the back enjoying the meal my boss had promised me when he slumped into the chair across from me. He looked absolutely exhausted. I asked him what was wrong, and that's when he told me everything. He explained that after the firefighters left, he thought maybe the alarm was just malfunctioning, but he decided to check the security camera footage just to be sure. He pulled out his phone and showed me the footage. The indoor camera showed the fire door being pulled open from the outside. Then he showed me the outdoor camera footage. Clear as day, there was the 10-year-old kid from earlier, the eldest of the three who'd been running around. He grabbed the door handle, yanked it open, and then took off running. My boss immediately sent the footage to the police. They went to pay the entitled family a visit that same night. He told me that at first they tried to deny everything and insisted their kid would never do something like that. But when the officer mentioned that my boss was planning to press charges, the 10-year-old cracked under the pressure. He admitted that his parents had each paid him $100 to go open that door and set off the alarm. They had actually paid their own kid to sabotage the restaurant because they wanted revenge for getting kicked out. Because of his age, the kid himself didn't get charged with anything, but Child Protective Services got called in to investigate the family. Before my boss could even file a lawsuit, the entitled family's lawyer reached out to settle everything quietly. They ended up having to pay for a brand new fire door, one that couldn't be opened from the outside, plus a completely new alarm system for the entire restaurant. And my boss made sure to pick the most expensive top-of-the-line equipment available. The bill must have been massive. From that night forward, we had the hostess wait outside before No Children Night events started, just to make absolutely sure no kids could sneak in. The entitled family never showed their faces there again, and honestly, good riddance. I've had asthma since I was 3 years old. It's been part of my life for so long that I've learned to manage it pretty well. I always carry my inhaler, I know my triggers, and I've gotten good at avoiding situations that might set me off. The smell of pesticides and strong detergents are the worst for me. Even a whiff can start tightening my chest. That's why I'm usually pretty careful about where I go in stores. This day I just needed some simple things. Frozen breakfast burritos and toilet paper. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. I shop at this store all the time, so I know the layout pretty well. Or at least I thought I did. They'd done some rearranging since my last visit, and I couldn't find the toilet paper in its usual spot. So there I was, walking up and down the aisles, basket in hand, trying to figure out where they'd moved everything. I turned down one aisle when immediately recognized it as the cleaning products section. The chemical smell hit me even from the entrance. I didn't even pause. I just turned right around and walked away quickly. I've learned not to take chances with that stuff. My lungs don't forgive mistakes. When I was leaving, I noticed there was a woman in that aisle. She was holding up different bottles of air freshener and spraying them into the air, testing them out, I guess. I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to get away from there. That's when I heard her yell at me to come to her. I kept walking. I figured she was calling for an actual employee or maybe someone she knew. I mean, I was clearly shopping. I had a basket full of stuff in my hands. I wasn't wearing any kind of uniform. There was no reason for anyone to think I worked there. I was still searching for the toilet paper when I felt someone grab my elbow. Hard. She told me she was talking to me and called me a witch. I turned around and there she was, the woman from the cleaning aisle. Her mask was pulled down under her chin, and she was wearing this really aggressive shade of red lipstick that somehow made her look even more irritated. My first instinct was to step back. I'm high risk for lots of reasons, not just the asthma, and here was this stranger grabbing me with her mask off. I asked her to please put on her face mask and told her I was high risk. She said I couldn't tell her what to do and that she was the one who told me what to do. She insisted I worked for her. Then she ordered me to come smell some air fresheners and tell her which one was better. I was about to tell her I didn't work there when I saw her hands move. She was holding 2 bottles of air freshener. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. She took the cap off one bottle and pointed it directly at my face. Then she sprayed. Right in my face. Then she did it again with the second bottle. She told me to tell her which one was better. The thing is, I was already starting to have trouble breathing. She'd gotten close enough that I could smell the air freshener clinging to her clothes and hands. My chest was already starting to feel tight, but when she sprayed those chemicals directly at me, everything got worse fast. I dropped my basket. I didn't care about the burritos or anything else. I needed my inhaler. Now, my hands were shaking when I dug through my backpack. My chest felt like someone was sitting on it. Each breath was getting harder. I finally got my hand on the inhaler when I felt her grab my wrist. She told me to help her first and then get to my drugs. She called me a brat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. I shoved her away from me. She stumbled backward, but I wasn't paying attention anymore. I got the inhaler to my mouth and took a dose, then another. I was bent over, trying to force air into my lungs, waiting for the medicine to work. I was still struggling to breathe when I heard her voice again. She was yelling that I was right there and demanding that someone fire me and arrest me. She wanted me in jail. I looked up. She'd found someone who looked like a manager. He was staring at me with this horrified expression. He came over and asked me if I was okay. He helped me stand up properly. He picked up my basket and started gathering the things that had fallen out of my backpack when I'd been searching for my inhaler. I told him I was better, but I just needed to sit down and catch my breath. She interrupted and said no, that he was going to fire me first. She said I could breathe on the way to the police station for assaulting an elderly person. I looked at her. She was maybe 35 years old. What elderly person? The manager told her to shut up and called her an idiot. He just completely ignored her after that. He led me toward the back of the store while she screamed behind us. He took me to his office and opened a window so I could get some fresh air. My breathing was getting easier, but I still felt shaky. That's what happens after an attack. The adrenaline crash is almost bad when the attack itself. We'd only been in the office maybe 5 minutes when someone knocked on the door. It was the police. She had followed us and had been waiting outside the office this whole time. She yelled that it was finally time. The manager asked me if I would like to press charges. Her face went completely blank. She asked what he was talking about and insisted that she was the one who was assaulted by this employee. I'd had enough. I yelled at her asking how she could be so stupid. I told her I obviously didn't work there and that I also very obviously just had an asthma attack right in front of her. I asked her who she thought she was and called her a witch. The police officer asked us both to explain what happened. I told him everything exactly when it occurred. She told some wild story that didn't make any sense. The officer looked exhausted listening to her. He asked if there was security footage. The manager pulled it up immediately and showed him everything. The whole thing was on camera. Me walking away from the cleaning aisle. Her following me. Her grabbing me. Her spraying those bottles in my face. Me pushing her away while having an asthma attack. I told the officer I wanted to press charges for assault. The officer put handcuffs on her and walked her out. She was still yelling, but I couldn't hear what she was saying anymore. The manager told me everything in my basket was free and asked if I needed an ambulance. I told him I was fine. This wasn't my first asthma attack and it wouldn't be my last. I was used to dealing with it. I drove home, heated up one of those burritos, and ate it while sitting on my couch. It was pretty good. Back when I was a teenager, I was still figuring myself out. Really figuring myself out. I was so deep in denial about my sexuality that I was forcing myself to date boys, trying desperately to convince myself that I was into them. It was exhausting, honestly, pretending to be someone I wasn't. But that's what teenagers do when they're scared, right? So I had this boyfriend. He was the kind of guy who was really into video games, which normally would have been fine because I actually enjoyed gaming too. We'd spend hours at his place playing different things, and most of the time it was actually pretty fun. But he had this one obsession that he would not let go of, no matter how many times I tried to dodge it. He kept bugging me about playing Need for Speed with him. Every single time I came over, he'd bring it up. He'd beg me to try it, insisting I'd love it if I just gave it one chance. I kept telling him that racing games really weren't my thing, that I'd tried other racing games before and they just didn't do it for me. But he wouldn't accept that answer. He kept insisting that this one was different, that I'd love it once I got into it, that I just had to trust him on this. This went on for weeks. Every visit, same conversation. I liked the guy well enough, or at least I thought I did at the time, but he could be really persistent when he wanted something. Eventually, I just got worn down by the constant asking and figured it wouldn't kill me to try it once. Maybe if I played it, he'd finally drop the subject and we could go back to playing games I actually enjoyed. So I finally agreed to play just one game. His face lit up like I'd just agreed to marry him or something. He told me I was going to love it and that he promised it would be great. Here's the thing about me and video games. I play them to relax and have fun. If I win, that's great, but it's not the end of the world if I don't. I'm not super competitive about it. I just want to enjoy myself and maybe laugh at the ridiculous things that happen in games. That's the whole point for me. My boyfriend, however, was the complete opposite. He took his games seriously. Like, really seriously. The kind of serious where you'd think actual money was on the line or something. He'd get this intense look in his eyes, his jaw would clench, and he'd lean forward in his chair like he was physically in the game. It was fine when he was playing alone, but when he watched other people play, especially me, it became a problem. He suggested I try the police chase mode, saying it was the most exciting part of the game. I said sure, whatever, and started playing. Almost immediately, I could feel the energy in the room change. He scooted his chair right next to mine so close I could feel him breathing down my neck. Then the instructions started. He told me to turn left, then immediately yelled that I was turning the wrong way. He kept shouting at me to speed up. I tried to focus on the game, but it was hard with him hovering like that. He started doing these weird jerking movements with his body, like he was trying to steer the car with his mind or something. His hands would grip the edge of the desk and he'd lean one way or the other, like that would somehow make my virtual car turn better. He screamed at me to watch out for a cop car and to drift around it. I tried to tell him I was doing my best, but he cut me off and yelled at me not to hit the wall. But of course, because he was yelling, I got flustered and scraped against the wall. The car made this horrible screeching sound and slowed down for a second. He shouted in disbelief, asking if I was kidding him, complaining that I just let the cops catch up. I tried to tell him that if he could just stop yelling, maybe I could focus better. But he insisted he wasn't yelling, that he was helping, and demanded I pay attention to the road, except he was definitely yelling. His voice had gone up about 3 octaves and he was practically bouncing in his seat. Every time I made even the smallest mistake, clipping a corner or missing a turn, he'd shout at me like I just crashed a real car. I asked him multiple times to calm down and stop backseat gaming, but he completely ignored me. It was like I wasn't even there, like I was just a poorly programmed robot that wasn't following his commands correctly. The more he yelled, the more mistakes I made. It's like this vicious cycle where the pressure makes you mess up, which makes them yell more, which makes you mess up even more. My hands were getting sweaty on the keyboard and I could feel my frustration building. The police sirens in the game were getting louder, meaning they were catching up and my boyfriend was practically having a meltdown next to me. He kept screaming at me to go faster, asking why I was slowing down, ordering me to turn right. I snapped back that I knew what right meant. He asked why I wasn't turning then, groaning that I was going to get caught and demanding I speed up. That was it. I'd had enough. I was done with the yelling, done with the hovering, done with being treated like I was ruining his life by not being good at a video game I didn't even want to play in the first place. So I did something that, looking back, was probably pretty petty, but in the moment felt absolutely perfect. Right in the middle of the chase, with the police cars right behind me and the sirens blaring, I just stopped. I took my hands off the keyboard and sat back in my chair. The car in the game came to a complete stop in the right lane, just sitting there while the cops surrounded it. He completely lost it. His head whipped back and forth between me and the screen, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His mouth was hanging open and his eyes were huge. He shouted at me, demanding to know what the hell I was doing. I looked at him with the straightest face I could manage, then pointed at the traffic light on the screen that happened to be red. I kept my voice completely calm and innocent, like I was explaining something obvious to a child. I simply told him the light was red. The silence that followed was beautiful. He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. His face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds: confusion, disbelief, anger, and then finally something that might have been understanding or maybe just defeat. He didn't say anything. He just stood up, walked over to his bed, and sat down. We didn't talk about it for the rest of the day. We ended up playing a different game, one where he didn't feel the need to critique my every move. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.